We welcome you tonight to our CCW, and I will offer the prayer. Our Father in heaven, we are thankful to be here as councillors and guests and residents. We ask thy Spirit to be with us, that we will be guided for the things that we need to do in this community of ours. We are thankful for the Spirit, which is the season we're in. We ask that we will recognize this season and bless it daily. These things we ask humbly in the name of thy Son, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
Like I said, I welcome you to the CCW. I welcome Corey McCarthy with Channel 32, Bill Creed with the press, and our ladies from Victim Services, and also Marcia and Tara with the Remington Center program. So we welcome you here. We have the agenda in front of you, but first of all, I ask everybody to turn their cell phones down, please.
I didn't know it was on.
He was looking right at you.
There. All right. We have the agenda. Thanks, Jeff, for sending us the agenda early. It is really nice to be able to go over our agenda, think about the things we're going to talk about tonight. So, have we got any additions and additions to the agenda?
Now would we adopt the agenda as outlined?
Thank you, Councillor Selk. All in favor? Carried. Okay, we have our delegations here. Miss Jenna Farrell, Carson Victim Services, and I'm sorry, I apologize to you that I don't know who are both of you going to do the presentation?
Just myself.
Okay, Jenna, go ahead.
Perfect. Well, thank you for having me. I appreciate it. The time to talk and just give you an update of where we're at. So, Victim Services was established in 2016. We are a registered association through the government. We're incorporated as a nonprofit. We receive a grant from the Alberta government. It's a police-based grant, and it covers program needs for victims of crime. So the grant that we receive is very specific as to what we can use the funds for. So we have to follow within that guideline. So last year, I believe in the spring, the council approved to give us a monetary amount to assist with things that our current grant doesn't allow us to cover things for. So just to give you an update on what that's been used for. I do have statistics that I can give you a copy of if you require it, but just because it's sensitive information, we try to not pass that around too much. So, year to date for 2018, we have opened 84 files.
How many?
84. So there's been 84 victims of crimes that are found, correct?
That's 84 files. That's 1 or 2 or 4 people per file.
Yeah, so in total, service given to people in the community is 364 victims of those files. So I also have the demographic of breakdowns. So for females, age 0 to 11, we've helped 2. Ages 12 to 17, we've helped 12. Ages 18 to 64 for females, 181. And females age 65 plus, 6. And then for males, age 0 to 11 is 12. Age 12 to 17 is 22. Age 18 to 64 is 120. And 65 plus is 9. So in total, that's our 364 that we've assisted. So with the funding that the town provided for us, we were able to get hotel rooms for women who are victims of domestic that aren't able to get to a shelter in Lethbridge immediately, and provide diapers, clothing for babies, those sorts of things. So our grant that we get from the government doesn't allow us to use the funding for that. So we can't cover the direct needs of the victim, only the services
Can I just ask you,
Sure.
those 364 victims, which geographical area does that cover?
The town of Cardston and the Cardston County.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
So of those open files, 21 of those are assaults. 8 of those are assault with a weapon. Break and enter was just 1. Domestic dispute is 5. Fraud is 7. Homicide is 1. Mental Health Act is 1. Mischief and vandalism is 6. Other offenses is 1. Non-violent other offenses is 4. Sexual assaults is 6. Sudden deaths are 4. Suicide is 1. And theft is 11.
What was that last thing?
Theft. And threats and harassment is 7. And that adds up to our 84 files open.
Could you go through them one more time? 21
Sure.
assaults?
And I have a copy that I can give you of that.
Okay.
Any specific statistics if you'd like.
That would be good.
Yeah, and it's all in a report. So essentially what we're here to do is ask for next year is just a continuance of the money that was given last year. So even a dollar per diem per citizen, that money does get used. We can't specify, of course, what it is because of the sensitivity surrounding it, but it does get used for those 364 people.
It's rather remarkable that in a
Yeah, it's actually
town like
unbelievable.
ours, we would have so much criminal
Yeah, and in that,
files.
we also have volunteer hours. So to date, we have one person with 1,605 hours in 2018 of volunteer time. Another at 100.
How many hours?
1,600.
1,605. Another person at 111.5. Another at 153.5. And that doesn't include any of the board and the time that we spend in meetings and making decisions on behalf of victim services.
Jenna, when we talk about transportation to Lethbridge,
Yes.
how is that done?
So we, part of the grant that we get from the government, there's mileage included. So, for example, on one of our cases, the court, because of the crime, is in Lethbridge. So the victim of the crime doesn't have transportation. So the person, the advocate, or Shelley-Anna program coordinator, will often drive them to Lethbridge.
Okay, now, one more question.
Or meet them there to support them. Either
How
way.
do you work in cooperation with the Blood Tribe Victim Services?
So the Blood Tribe Victim Services is going through a little bit of turmoil. So we're working with the Solicitor General of Alberta. And what we're trying to do is break up the workload between Cardston, Fort McLeod, and Connie Nation. And some of it goes to Raymond. It just depends on the jurisdiction where the crime happens. And so there's a work in progress happening there. And then we do have some Native advocates, just depending on what the crime is. Sometimes it's more specific to a cultural issue, and so we try to use those advocates for those specific cases.
Any other questions? Councillor Brown?
I have laryngitis, I apologize. All right. I just think it's fantastic what you're all doing, and it's amazing what you have done, how far you've stretched, what we've given you. So we really appreciate
We
you.
appreciate it also.
Thank you.
Councillor Morris?
I just wanted to say, what a wonderful thing has happened since you were here last. Because when you were here last, we didn't really know what was going to happen. And to see the results from this is truly astounding. It really touches me to think that it's happened that well. Congratulations. Thank you so much.
Thank you, we appreciate
And
it.
thank
I wanted
those
to
wonderful
just-
volunteers for all they're doing too, please.
Well, we're working on getting more, so we have 3 more just in the process of the modules. And the problem is that Solicitor General has these 35 modules, which are very time consuming, and you are a volunteer, so it's a process.
They have to take this course
Yeah,
first
there's
before
lots
they
of
can.
It's your
training that
crisis
goes-
support workers
Right.
to go out and do that type of job and need to.
That only makes sense, to have that kind of background to help.
The only thing I want to touch on with that, everything that Jenna said, is that, so the Solicitor General, they help us with anything that has crime, but for the rest of the things that happen in our community, like today, we had a fire, to go and support them and support the firefighters as well, that come from your money. That's what I want to say. You know, anything that doesn't come connected to a crime, they won't help us with at all. So that's where you're
Is that a fire in a town or in the county?
out of town. That particular one was out of town, but we have helped with, we'll go and do the exact same thing in town.
I've got a question, and I'll call on Jeff, he's got some questions. Jenna and partner, out of these files, are they all taxpayers to the county and to the town of Cardston?
As far as we know, they're residents of Cardston, so as to if they pay their taxes or not.
Okay,
Yeah.
good.
Yeah, so all of our referrals come from the officers who deal with them. So part of the mandate from the provincial government is that each victim has a right to be heard. And so as part of the officers' process is they have to offer our services and whether they choose to accept it or not. So of these 84 files, that's who's chosen to accept our services.
Jeff?
I just wanted to clarify, last year, when we looked at the amount of funding annually, it was a bit of a, what do I want to call it? I don't want to call it an arbitrary number, but it was a bit of a match of what the county had committed with what the town committed, and we didn't really set on, here's how much per capita would be, you know, kind of the expectation. It worked out to about $1.50 per capita, is what it worked out to if you divide that across. I just want to confirm, because we need to have this on the agenda next week when we look at budget for the last time. You had mentioned, Jenna, that perhaps at least $1 per capita. I assume more is better. I'm going to make that assumption.
Yeah.
But is there kind of a number that you're saying to keep sustaining this level? Here's what we need between the town and the county. What's your thoughts on that number?
Right, so the county essentially gave us the same amount
Okay.
that the town did. And we also received from Hill Spring and Glenwood, because we do service out there as well.
Okay.
And so just to kind of maintain where we're going, $1 is kind of where we're at.
Do you assume that same number?
Assuming that the rates of our files
Right.
don't dramatically increase.
Are you counting on that county and village contribution again? Do you
We're
assume
hoping,
that's coming
yeah.
forward? Okay. Okay.
Yeah. We're trying not to
Okay.
assume anything. but
Sure,
we're
fair
hoping.
enough, fair
Yeah.
enough. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Anything else for us? Any other questions from council? Thank you for your presentation.
Thank you.
I'll talk to you guys in the next couple of days.
Sure.
Okay. Our next delegation, I know you as Marcia Jensen, but it's Marcia Jensen Wright. So Marcia, do you want to step up and give us our program for us? Our presentation?
Mayor Kronen and council. As you're aware, some of you are aware, we were here last week with a proposal for new theater at the Remington Center stage. And we're here tonight to kind of explain our proposal a little more clearer to you, as you had questions last week that were very valid. So to start, I want to tell you that we're not trying to be another theater group in Cardston. The two existing theaters, Cardston Community Theater and Carriage House Theater, tend to do large musicals and summer theater. It's pretty rare for either group to do a drama or non-musical play. Community theater came about in 1977, and in 40 years, 41 years, they have only done 2 dramas, which were Clue the Musical and, or not Clue the Musical, but The Mousetrap and Storm. Carriage House, I'm not quite as familiar with that theater, but a little bit. I know that they have done a few dramas such as Curious Savage and a few others. Their mandate mostly is to do the large productions and have a large cast and to fill the theater. It's, I hate to say it, but it's a money-making process for them. And you can make the most money off of a musical over a drama. And musicals also require more people for the chorus, for the singing and whatnot than a drama does. So what we're trying to do is take and do more smaller plays. We know that I, as a director, and have been on the board, and I've worked with Carriage House Theater and Community Theater, I know that when you come and you say, hey, will you do costumes for us for this play? And people stand back and they go, oh, no, I don't want to be responsible for that much. I've never done that. No, I don't want to do that. You know, you get people that cannot sing, but they would love to be in a production. But no director is going to put a non-singer in a musical. You need everyone there taking up the space to be able to sing. So we want to access those types of people that can sing but would like to be in a production. We want to take people who say, no, I don't want to have up, making sets for you or props or whatever, because it's too much. It's too big a play. I've never done it. I don't know anything. We want to take that group of people and train them and show them how to do it so that they can go on and help the other 2 theater groups, so that when they come along and say, hey, you did the costumes for such and such a play, would you like to come do it now? And they can say, yes, I know what it's like, I know what it entails, I've got some contact people now, and I know how to do that, I would love to do it. So we also see that a lot of people say rehearsals, 3-4 months, no, I don't want to commit that much time. We want to take and have a turnaround of about 8 weeks, 2 months, and with smaller plays. We have talked to Howard Snyder with the Remington Museum, and he supports our proposal, and he was excessively accommodating when I went and talked to him. We got talking about the stage, and I asked him what size was the stage, because I had forgotten. We had done Clue the Musical there through Community Theater, and I think it was 2007. Anyway, and we were sold out every night. Howard grabbed his tape measure and he said, let's go see. So he took me onto the stage, he measured it this way, that way, height of ceiling, took me back behind the theater, said, here, you can use this little alcove. If you put up drapes, you can use that for a change room type thing. We've got storage up above. He pointed out that the chairs have 16-inch foam, which is more foam in any seating in any theater in southern Alberta, apparently. There is stair lighting, lighting at the end of each row of the theater, and there is more leg room than in any other theater. So he's on board with us. I asked him about would there be a place to build a set. He said, yes, we can use the stables. I said, okay, well, that would be possible if the weather's permitted, you know. And he goes, why would it bother you? He says, the stables are heated. Oh, that won't be a problem. You know, I said, you know, do you have a way that we could sell tickets from here? And he said, more than likely they could sell them out of that little alcove there, that he would have to look into that, but that's a possibility. So we're trying to access people who would like to do theater but don't sing, or are frightened by larger productions. We're trying to enhance the other two theater groups by helping them in having trained people that can enter their stage and it's less work for them. So down the road we see, and it's not to say that we wouldn't do musicals, we will do musicals. The largest, the most amount of people that you would be able to put on that stage is about 20. And yes, we could do musicals, and, excuse me, but the big, huge productions, probably, you know, 30, 40 people out there would not even be a possibility, and that's not what we want to do. Carriage House Theater, Dr. Russell made a comment that there was 143 people who auditioned for all of them. Of that 143, they took roughly 30 to be in all of them. Sheila Haig felt so bad that some of them couldn't get in that she decided to take roughly another 30 and do Elk, which is running right now. There is interest, there is a need, and we would like to do them. Looking down the road, we would like to do more original type productions. There's lots of people who like to write plays, but no way to convince the larger theater groups to perform. We would also like to do like roadshow type things, have a little fun, variety type shows, you know, like Carson's Got Talent, type of show, contests, variety shows, you know, for us older people looking at Sullivan, you know. Barb and I have talked about maybe doing a type of a talk show, which we talked about with Logan years ago, and we're all set to do that, but I don't know, I can't remember what happened, but we never did do it. But it would be, you know, using Channel 32 as well. Cardston is chock full of wonderful amenities, venues and whatnot that are not used. Remington Center is not used hardly at all, and sadly. And yet they have this beautiful facility. And mostly, Cardston people don't ever go into the Remington Center because they don't have a reason to go in. So we would like to give them a reason to go in. Our Place Cafe, I haven't talked to them, but I'm sure they have to be struggling right now. So we would like to open it up to them for dinner theater. And that place is wonderful for that type of a show, a dinner theater show. So that's roughly what we are trying to do. We're not trying to be yet another theater company. We are not trying to compete with the two already existing companies because we can't. Their theaters hold like Carriage House, I think it's 334, and community theater, if you count the balconies, roughly 400, and Remington Center 80. So we're not even in the same ballpark. We're trying to train people and trying to get people that want to do dramas to be on stage as well. So that's kind of what our goal is. We don't plan to do plays when, if Carriage House Theatre is doing a spring play, we won't. If they are, Carriage House Theatre does summer theatre, we don't want to do summer theatre. We're not trying to bump into them. We're not trying to take away anything from them. We're trying to give them something.
Marcia, this is a government-owned facility, so it has to have the government's good gracious placed on anything that goes on in there. And so you probably have to work through the Friends of the Society at the Remington. How have you contacted them?
I have, like I said, I have talked to Howard Schneider with the museum end of it. And I have talked to, we handed a proposal to the Remington Friends Society. I handed it in to them through Dana Stewart. And they have come back, and the proposal is basically the same as what this is. And they came back and said that they were not interested at this time, which is fine. However, in talking to Vern Clinton, who is the president of the Friends Society board, he said that they are not interested, but that it is all up to Howard as to the use of the theater. So it's a little confusing because the Friends Society uses the building for fundraising, but the government, the museum end of it, controls all of it. So basically, Vern said to me, if Howard says that you can do theater there, then you can do theater there. We have no say in that. So the Friends Society is not interested at this time. So they're out of the picture, so to speak. And it's just a negotiation between us and Mr. Snyder.
Thank you. Councillor Barnes?
Yeah, I was interested to have some kind of an understanding of the Friends Society role now. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but I heard that they've shut down the gift shop there?
They have.
And so I'm wondering, where do they do their fundraising? I thought that was kind of...
Well, they do things like the what do you call it? The tables, they just...
Craft shows and stuff like that?
Yeah, they do things like
Christmas
that.
market
A couple of weeks
and
ago, they
whatever.
did a children's, drop your kids off and have them shop for gifts type
Yeah.
of thing, and I asked Dana about, why did you close the gift shop? And her reason was, she said the reason was because of low traffic. If you went down into that Remington Center tomorrow, I'm willing to bet that the only people that you're going to see there are staff. So we're trying to increase the awareness of the Remington Center and trying to make it more friendly for the citizens of Cardston. When was the last time you ate down there?
The other day,
Probably never,
I've eaten there quite a few times.
Yeah.
They have great food down there.
Mayor Kronen?
Marsha, I just tried to understand a few things here. Is there a reason why musical are more attracting people than drama, and then yet you want to go to drama? And so I'm pretty sure that if the other two community centers had thought that drama production would attract more people than comedy or light-hearted things, wouldn't they have done it a long time ago?
Well, like I said, Mayor Cronin, the reason why the two theater groups choose musicals is because they can use more people and because they can make more money. popular.
Because it attracts more
like
people.
musicals better.
Yes.
The reason people like musicals better is because it's a more all senses appeal to them. They know the songs from, wherever and whatnot, and it just becomes a little more appealing.
So, which is the crowd that you're trying to attract then with your 80 seats?
We're
If
trying
there
to-
is more interest in the light-hearted stuff.
When you put it like that, I guess what we are trying to, we're trying to teach people to love dramas as well.
No, I totally understand that, and it's very commendable. But you also have a business proposition to us that is going to be a money maker, and I want to believe that, I really do. But I'm trying to figure out if it didn't work for the larger community center as well. Where do you have your hopes that is going to work for you? Just a question. I'm just asking the question because the reason I'm asking the question is for this purpose. If you saw our bylaw is really driven by the potential. It tells you that the assistance with seed funding will be given to for the potential to drive economic activity. So to drive economic activity, you need people. So this is why I'm asking the question. Where are you hoping to draw the pool? I understand you have the pool of talents, totally understood. And it's commendable that you want to give them a first chance at becoming good at something that they're interested in. But I'm thinking, okay, now we need to attract the crowd for 5 days or as long as you think a production will run. This is what I'm trying to understand in my mind.
Okay, so as far as bringing interest into people into Cardston to see the play is once, as far as I'm concerned, community theater is horrible at how they advertise their plays. Carriage House over the years has garnered a huge website with lots of people and whatnot, and that has worked really well for them. But community theater, not at all. So they put a banner out front here. They have a web page, but I'm on their board. I don't even know how I've never been on that page either. Forgive me, but I have ideas of things that I would like to do to make the plays more. Back years ago, they would contact different towns like Tabor and whatnot, their senior society, and they would get busloads in, and then they just stopped doing that. But they should still be doing that. There's lots of places where you can advertise for free, such as the Coffee News that comes out in Lethbridge every week. There's a lot of places where they could be advertising, but they don't. Places that you could bring people in, and Channel 32, if you were able to do an interview with the cast or something, would help to drive it, and word of mouth would carry it from there.
Councillor Selk and then Councillor Drew. Go ahead.
I was just, in response to Mayor Kronen's question, I was just going to say that dinner theater is different, it draws a different crowd. And the dinner theaters are largely popular, and they're becoming more popular, especially in the cities. Lethbridge, the playgoers, Dinner Theater is a new theater, and they do extremely well. They do the small productions. They do mostly comedies, because comedies are a really nice way of doing a non-musical that draws the interest of the theater goers. And they sell out every night that they run their shows, and they run their show for about 10 plus nights depending. And in looking at Raymond, they have started doing dinner theater with theirs. Our hope is to utilize the full center. We have our Place Cafe down there now, and it is the perfect venue in order to be able to host dinner theater style shows. Community theater, we're not able to do that unless we don't put the house up and we have tables on the gym floor, and that takes away from the number of people that we can seat. Carriage House Theater has tried to do the dinner theater, but you have to leave one venue and go to the next venue, and the seniors don't like that. They don't like having to walk outside, especially in the winter when it's cold. So the Remington Center poses a very unique opportunity, and we would like to be able to grab hold of that opportunity and be able to use it. Their theater is small, but we believe that with the talent that we have here in the community and with what we want to do at the center and use our Place Cafe and do the dinner theater, that we will be able to tap into that unique crowd that are specific dinner theater goers. It's a very different group of people that we are trying to draw into the community.
Thank you.
Councillor Selk?
2 questions. So, Marcia, you said that you sit on the community theater board. Have you run this idea by them? Because it seems to me like you could work together.
We have, and they have said that they do not want to do anything at the Remington Center. They believe that community theater is strictly this building, and they only want to do things in this building. We did Clue the Musical down at the Remington Center, and it was very popular. It was so popular that we had to put extra seats in the aisles. And since then, community theater, for whatever reason, has said that they do not want to leave this venue. Those that are on the current board have said that they are not willing to entertain community theater going to another venue, even though we were so successful there.
Carriage House Theater also, just so you know, I asked Dr. Russell one day, I said, why don't you do your dinner theaters? Because they had done a dinner theater and they had said that it was not very successful. And I had said, well, it's cold out and it's slippery. I was working backstage with the play at the time. And I said, why don't you do something at Remington Center? And Dr. Russell was very pointed and said, why would we do that when we have our own beautiful facility? So rightfully so. They are never, Carriage House will never do Remington Center. So.
Second question. Given the amount of money that we have at our disposal in this fund and what you're asking here, can you make it work with less money because we don't have that much?
Well, we're asking, okay, as you have noticed, our budget was $4,600.
Our total budget is $4,600. To do less, then we would just have to cut down on the sets. You just use less sets. You have people bring in use what they have for costumes rather than have somebody make costumes. You look at a play that the royalties are not quite as costly to get. there are ways of still doing this. We do need the startup money in order to get the royalties at least. And the minimum amount of royalties is about $2,000 to $3,000.
You're requesting 3,800, is that correct?
Yeah.
4,600.
Councillor Drew, you have a question?
Yeah, so I just have a couple of questions. In your budget, there's 80 seats, and that's all the theater holds, is that correct? So when you say $15 a ticket, does that, if you're going to do a dinner theater, does that include the meal, or is the meal
No.
on top of that?
No, the $15 a ticket is just for the show. The dinner option would be another $15 to $20 on top of it.
And would you make any money off the meal part of it, or would it just be the Remington carriage?
We could. We don't want to increase our prices too much. Just enough so that we can make a profit, so that we can do the next production.
So will you pre-sell tickets to that? Okay, because I'm looking at your budget, and your profit projected is pretty small. So if you had 10 people less a night over 5 nights, you're not going to make any money, right? So that's just, I'm trying to figure out how that would work. So that's why I ask about pre-selling tickets beforehand. So thanks, thank you.
Councillor Court?
This may not be a fair comparison, but the Historical Society's ran a dinner theater. It's not exactly a full-blown type dinner theater. They were charging $50 a ticket, is that correct, Bill? And how many did they have out to that?
Actually, they had pretty good numbers there.
Yeah.
50 or 60?
They were pretty aggressive. Was you there, Paula?
I thought it was pretty much sold out. It was a packed house. It was a packed house.
Historical.
Yeah, I went to it. It was really, really good.
They were asking $50, so if they can pull one off by that.
Yeah.
$50, I think, to them was, because it was catered, they had to charge how much if it was going to be a fundraiser, right? So if you're going to charge 30, that's cheap.
But I think one thing, I was going to bring up that as well, with the Historical Society. When we went, one thing that, I like your ideas of thinking outside the box, because they did that, having it when they did. My dental office went there for a Christmas party, right? They gave those opportunities. So there were, Price and Common was there, All Smiles Dental was there. There were a lot of businesses that were there. And I thought that was a brilliant way of filling your house, was with people on their Christmas party rather than having the normal Christmas party. So I appreciate thinking outside the box for those kinds of things, because that's how you're going to fill those seats. Because you won't necessarily get it in Cardston if you just go the normal, pay the ticket. The other thing, if I may, the other thing, you could go into profit sharing with the cafe, just because you're bringing them business, right? So theoretically, you should get a percentage, whatever your board decides is reasonable. But I mean, that should be a partnership, I would
Yeah,
think.
it's a good idea.
Okay,
Any other questions?
thank you.
Just a comment.
Yes.
I'd be more than happy to go. I love dramas, and I love dinner theaters, so I definitely would be there, and my wife too.
Marcia and Tara, go ahead,
Yes,
Marcia.
one last comment that I would like to make is that Robert Kennedy and his campaign for presidential election, his slogan was, some people see things as they are and say why. I dream dreams that never were, and that's why not. So I think that's the spirit of what we're trying to do, is why not.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We thank you for your presentation, and we will discuss it later on this evening, but it was a good presentation. We thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, we have a delegation at 6:30, so let's carry on if you want to move on. We need an adoption of the minutes of November 6, 2018. Councillor Barnes,
Move
Any
to
questions?
adopt those minutes.
pardon me?
I said I move to adopt those minutes.
Okay, any questions on it? Okay, call for question. All in favor? Carried. Bylaw policy, policy R8-4, remuneration of council. It's 5:45 now, our delegation comes in at 6:30. We should have enough time to have some words on this, so let's open it up, council, let's go for it. If you've looked at the policy that Jeff has put in the fact sheet that he's put in to our, there it is, town policy. How do you feel about it? Mayor Kronen?
Okay, I just was looking first of all at the first component. The first component of that changes that we were looking at was to deal with the fact that the government was taking away the non-taxable portion of our honoraria and what it would represent to us. So there would be a change, possibly for some between 10 and 12% in the quarterly, but not to all. So I don't know what the average would be, but I would imagine probably more around 7 to 8% in average, because the difference would be between the people who are working and the people who are not. So there would be a difference. But let's say even if it was, let's think maximum 12%. I just put that as a maximum, trying to figure out what it represents money-wise. So 12%, it represents about $432 per quarter per person. So for 1 year at 12%, if that was the amount, would represent $1,728. And over 7 hours would represent $12,000 that we would have to see increased there. But that does not even count the adjustment to the per diem that all of you seem to feel we need to revisit. So I kind of looked at the revisitation a little bit and thinking, okay, what would that look like, considering that we have a listing of Carlson, Raymond, Pincher Creek, Pincher Butte, McGrath, Fort McLeod, Harrison, CNP, I'm not so sure what that is.
Crow's Pass.
Oh, Crow's Nest, okay, all right, thanks. And I looked at it, and there's quite a spread there if you look at it. The spread, Raymond is twice as much as the average, and Crow's Nest Pass is twice as less than the average. No, it's Crow's Nest. So I looked at it and I thought, if we take away the high and the low, because they're a little bit of an aberration when you look at the plotting, it would represent still an increase of 17%. If you keep the high and the low, it would be 23%. So if you average the two, maybe 20%. So I did a quick math, 20% increase per capita. And I realized that annually it would mean an increase about $11,000 plus. So if you added that to the 12,000 based on 17% for the per capita, we're talking about $23,000 a year increase. So $23,000 a year increase, that represents about 7 new houses at about $3,000. taxes. So that has me a little bit thinking, to say the least. Over 3 years, it represents almost $90,000. So those are the basic figures. And so what you need to do is kind of figure out where is the justifying for such increase. Comparison with other town or the reality of our town. That's all. So that's my piece. Questions?
Okay, I need a clarification on your comments, Mayor. So what you're suggesting is that all of us should just eat that portion that the federal government's
No.
not striking out of our...
No, I think that is a portion that we should really look at and get adjusted. I think that would be a fair thing, except that I don't really know how it affects us individually. I really have no idea. It would affect you, it would affect anybody that's working and has an income.
Good time.
Yeah,
It does.
it really would affect you quite a bit.
Being penalized, essentially.
No, but that, I think, and I was the one who had brought that up, that we should really at least address that much. But at which percentage, I don't know.
I look at the town policy, and under item 5, it says a half day per diem will be for meetings from 1 to 4 hours. Then a full day per diem will be from meetings from 4 to 8. I know around this council table that there is nobody, I'm pretty sure of it, who is claiming meetings for an hour and a half or 2 hours, which they could be claiming a half day per diem. And so your time involved in these meetings, like Councillor Drew and myself, spent what, 2.5 to 3 hours the other night at Chinook Foundation? And that's just a regular thing, and I know that Councillor Selk, Councillor Court, I don't know how much time, Councillor Brown, you spend at FCSS and so forth. I don't know. And Councillor Barnes, yes?
I was just going to say, I think, excuse me, with the meetings that we do attend, and when we're paid for those, we have to consider, is it fair what we're getting for the meetings that we attend with the amount of time that we do spend, right? And for some, there's travel involved. And I know for me, I have, and I really like the meetings that I attend. But the out-of-town meetings that I am involved with are always 3 to 4 hour, 5 hour turnaround for me, every one of those, right? And I appreciate where the mayor's coming from on our quarterly, because I think that those meetings are covered, but I don't think that it's enough, personally, on those quarterly for the amount of time that we're involved. I think that there needs to be an increase there, for sure. Also, and just my thoughts, my feelings on it. I look at the other communities, and it's hard for us to compare the highs and the lows, and I understand there's a middle ground in there where we should be compensated on our council meetings as well. And so, and I'm not sure where that is, whether it's midway in there or what, I don't know, but I think that's fair to consider. But anyways, that's just my feelings.
I want you to also remember that there was a committee struck a while back to review council remuneration, and so that will have to be dealt with if we go further into this. Jeff, you had a comment?
I just want to mention something before you get too far down the road here. One thing is on your tables, I added Cardston County's council remuneration. I forgot to get that in the background, so it's on your table. But besides that, Mayor, I just realized when I was listening to your numbers, you've got one extra multiplier in there. So you,
Which is-
I just
which
realized
one
you
is
took
it?
the 3,600, multiplied that by 4, then that by 7, and took the 12% of that. But 3,600 is your total
Oh,
compensation.
all right, so.
So I just,
yeah,
before you get
okay.
too far down that big number.
Okay, all right, so that would be 25,000,
It's about 10,500 would add, if you added 12% to total council compensation, you'd be adding about $10,500 a year.
but just for the quarterly, not
For
the-
everything.
For everything.
So if you took 2016, total council cost was $87,000. That was total council per diems and quarterlies. So 12% of that's pushing 10.5.
Okay, but that doesn't address the amount that the government has cut back at the maximum.
I'm just suggesting if you were to add 12% to total council compensation, if that's what you felt the number of the impact was, and said, look, we're going to increase
Okay, all right, I
across the
get
board
you.
by 12%,
Right.
you're going to land somewhere around $100,500 versus
Okay.
$87,000.
Which is about 10 grand.
Yeah,
Oh,
10.5.
okay,
Somewhere
yeah,
there, yeah. I
yeah,
just heard that
absolutely.
one number and I got
I was
thinking
making us very rich, didn't I?
that you were timesing your quarterly by 4,
Thank you.
but you know, that's not.
I want to
not
get more
what-
I made us very rich.
She was making up for the 12% more. let me assure
Well,
you.
I'm glad you cut that one, because I was thinking, oh my goodness, that's
Yeah.
a lot of money.
Yeah.
Councillor
Okay.
Brown?
One thing I will also add, having just got back from the FCSS conference and sitting at a table full of other councillors from all over Alberta, is the majority of them, on top of getting their monthly or quarterly, they also got benefits and cell phones and, which is, we don't get any of that, which I don't think, I'm requesting that, but I do feel that we are, when you look at the community in southern Alberta that we're comparing ourselves to, we're not comparing ourselves to Lethbridge or Calgary. We're talking about Fort Macleod, Raymond, Claresholm, McGrath, Pincher Creek, Pincher Butte, and the Crow's Nest Pass. I think we're being very realistic. And even the Kirkstone County.
I'm really looking at what they're getting.
Yeah.
Wow.
But
Yeah.
see, they
Tax-free
get,
savings account,
but they
travel
get
allowances.
benefits and the whole package. And I don't think we're requesting that,
No,
so,
we're not.
so
So that's another 25% on top for them.
anyway, my
Thank
point
you.
is, I just think we're a little below.
Comments? Councillor Gerry?
I just, we're talking about 12%. As I look at negotiations with unions, most unions are getting 0, 0, and a reopener after that 2 years of nothing. I just, my stomach's maybe in a little bit of a knot because I think that 12% is a lot, and in the economic stream of things, the way that things are going in the province, I'm not comfortable with that amount. I mean, I understand that we all deserve something, but I'm concerned about
I think,
that amount.
I think the 12% was just thrown out there.
Yeah, no, I'm
As a
just,
figure of the government limit.
Hold on.
But that's just what the government is
Yeah.
The
spending.
12% just covers the amount you're gonna lose come
Yeah.
January the 1st.
So
Exactly.
So if you wanna
It's
go
not
deeper in the
raised.
hole, go ahead.
If I may, historically as well, having worked in the public service as a teacher, our wages in Alberta have historically been much higher than the rest of the country. So for us to take the zeros for a cup period, we're still far, far ahead of our neighbors.
Hey, Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
historically, and you guys can help me because I didn't sit on the, but you weren't getting any raises the last year or two of your previous council, were you?
We did,
We did.
for 4 years, every year.
Every year.
Yeah, we did. Yeah, cost of living.
So you got a bump every year in the last term?
Yeah.
And so we've been here a year with a big
Zero.
coconut?
We,
Just want to clarify.
yeah,
That's right.
to clarify that a little bit, we went along with the Employee Association. Did we not, Mayor?
But it was negotiated.
Which we're not doing anymore.
No. Councillor Court?
Just a couple of things. Nothing really grates me worse than politicians making their own wages, if you know what I'm saying, increasing their own wages. Having said that, I also understand that you try to be average around where everybody else also, and nobody's going to make a living as a town councillor. That's 100% for sure. But I also believe that if you're not willing to compensate them somewhat fairly, you're going to have people saying it's not worth my while to run for council. We may not get the quality councillors we're looking for. Maybe we don't have them now, I don't know. But you know what I'm saying?
But-
It's a fine line between increasing your own wage. I know Lethbridge is looking at going to 4 full-time councillors and then 8 that aren't. But so it's difficult to be the person that raises your own wage, but then you also want to try and be to a point where you're going to attract good people to run, but they're not going to make a living at it, so.
I don't think anybody has let their name stand for office and be voted in, that this becomes an employment situation. I totally, understand that, but by the same token, the amount of work that you do in and out of council chambers, a lot of work is involved out of council chambers. Phone calls and criticisms and,
Talking to people on the street.
extra work with your committees and so forth, and so we legitimately need to have a look at that. I heard a comment once and it really disgruntled me. The comment was made by somebody, and I won't mention who it was, that council should work like the church. And it should be a volunteer position. And I'm thinking, holy smokes, open your eyes to reality. Mayor?
Okay, I really think maybe what we need to do around the table is maybe start to look at the government impact on the quarterly. Maybe let's try to see if we can come up to some sort of consensus. So at least if we had that sorted out, then we can try to figure out what else we're going, where else we're going.
Councillor Barnes?
I still, excuse me, looking at other councils over the past 5 years, and we've always been on the low end. We're on the higher part of the low end, and I think that our council is very responsible with how we deal with our budgetary items and stuff. But I still feel that I don't think that we should be in that bottom end. I think we need to be, there are several here that, we're going to kick off some high ones and take the middle road, and I really think that we need to be somewhere in there. That's my feelings.
Okay, Mayor Kronen put out.
And I was going to comment on,
Yeah.
we need to have the increase to cover whatever the government's going to take away from us. There's no
Okay,
question.
that's
I can't afford to pay
Okay,
taxes on
so
that.
you're looking at 12%?
At least.
Councillor Drew, where are you coming from?
I guess I maybe misunderstood, but I'd be comfortable with that if we were in the middle somewhere. Kind of comfortable with that.
Okay, somewhere in the middle. Councillor Selk.
From what I'm gathering from other communities, they're doing at least that. They're doing at least covering the costs of what the federal government's clawing back from January 1. Now, in the spreadsheet that we have here that compares us and our population, the cost per capita, the costs are actually lower because our population's increased.
Yeah.
So the population should be 3909, not 3580.
That's right.
Yeah.
Okay, Councillor Court.
I think it's all been said what I was been thinking, so,
Councillor Brown.
I agree.
And every time I open AUMA, there's, every community, whether it be city or small communities, even villages, are looking at that clawback and increasing their salary dollars. So I would look at 12% also, and be favorable with that. But like Councillor Selk, remember your 12% only covers what the government's going to draw back, and if you're a working in person, it's going to be about 18%.
I would go with the 12% plus maybe 3 more just to bring us in line with other communities. Whatever that may be, but again, I'm sensitive to the taxpayer because I'm one of them. I understand where it has to come from.
Okay,
It seems to me you have a consensus with.
can we leave it at 12%? Should we, yes?
Where does that take us other than we're going to cover any losses? And for those who are working, it's not really, it's still going to come out of our pockets even more. So for me, 12%'s not going to cut it. For Paula, it's not going to cut it. For anybody else that's working, it's not going to cut it. So we're going to take a loss, and I'm not prepared to do that.
Councillor business. So
Peter, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm still
So somewhere, we've got to come to the point where we're leveled off. I mean, I still look at the other communities and where they're at, and you can rest assured that these other communities, where they're at, they're not going to take a reduction of where they're at. They're going to add their amount that they're going to lose to those amounts. So, the one here that's at 188 is going to go up closer to 200 plus. So I think we need to look also at our per diems as well, and our meeting schedule, as well as everything else.
Let's not speculate what other councillors do. Let's worry about this council, okay? Council. Now, Councillor Court, you suggested 12 plus 3.
Only to bring us in line with other communities.
Okay.
I'm certainly not looking to get rich to be a town councillor.
Okay. Any other comments? Where do we go,
I
Jeff?
do have a question.
Yes.
So if we're discussing this, this amount to cover the potential clawback, is that all we're talking about here? Or are we talking about an increase overall as well here?
How do you want to handle it? Do you want to do the per diems and mileage and everything all in one package?
Well, I don't know about the mileage. I think we're probably in line right now with the mileage, but we need to look at the others, I think, at the same time.
Jeff.
Just to be clear, your exemption is coming off your quarterly and your per diems for additional meetings. You don't get you're not taxed on mileage reimbursements, you're not
Right.
taxed on meal reimbursements, that kind of stuff anyway.
That's right.
And really rough math, but even for those who are, well, especially for those who are working, I think your maximum impact, if your average income is, let's say 12,000, because that's kind of an average number for you guys, your maximum impact here is 12% on your 12,000. That's about the most. If you paid, so a third of your 12,000 and you paid 40% tax, you lose the credit on that third. That's $1,440, which is 12% of your total compensation. So I don't think any of you are lining up to have an 18%, higher percent impact than that on your overall income. I think 12 is the cap for those of you that would be paying 40% tax on that last third.
Yeah.
That seems to be in my head where your numbers. Not to say you shouldn't talk about a little more than that. That's not what I'm suggesting. Just, I don't want anyone thinking that, well, because I'm working, I might be at 15, 18, 20% of my council income. I don't think that's how that's going to play out. But it is only on your quarterlies and your per diems is where the credit is going away.
Okay, now we got a little bit of different scoop on it. How do we feel?
Pretty much different than.
Councillor Court, you suggested 12 plus 3 or something like that? Councillor
A lot
Selk,
of mathematician,
you were looking at
me too.
12% maybe plus.
I have a suggestion, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
I would suggest that we look at the 12% because that's what we're going to get hit with in January and revisit it in the new year after we've had a chance to actually work through this.
I agree.
So take this as a recommendation to look at the other after we do the.
We have
need
to,
to see the
let's just say we
impact.
have to sharpen our
Yes.
pencil and
Yeah.
the numbers. So if we do this, then you're not losing
covered.
anything.
Right.
And then we review it again sometime in the new year after we have a chance to review what the numbers look like for,
Yeah,
does
I'm
that
okay
make
with that.
sense?
I agree.
I agree, sure.
Could we have a recommendation to maybe review this February CCW?
Yep.
That puts you
Is
in.
that far enough down the line?
Yeah, you might want to look at March or
Yeah.
or maybe even April when you get past the first quarter of the first.
I think
of the
March.
And
next
pass the whole budget.
March is your end of the quarter.
So Councillor, are you suggesting January increase 12% and review it after that?
Yes. Come March, reassess.
Yeah, we'll increase to get
To
what
cover.
we're clawing back
What we're
right
losing.
now. And
That's
then we, possibly in April, we review it after we
I got
get
you.
through the first quarter of 2019. So we see what it actually looks like in terms of
So question, when does that tax exemption disappear,
January.
Jeff?
January 1st.
January first.
So is it for the year 2019? This
Yes.
2018, we're still okay?
No impact.
No
Okay.
impact.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay, are you good with what Councillor Selk has said?
Yes.
Okay, can I get a recommendation, Councillor Selk?
Yeah, I'll make a recommendation that we adjust council salary as it pertains to the changes in tax being implemented by the federal government. And then we'll review it again once we're into the next tax year.
So you're setting it at 12% recommendation. Any other discussion? Okay, let's move forward. We've got that recommendation. Okay, we don't need a motion on that until next meeting. Pardon me?
Vote on that recommendation.
Okay, all in favor of that? Carried.
Mr. Chairman, just
Yes.
so we're clear, we'll bring back that application in budget next week, but we'll also bring back a new table in the compensation policy as well. So there'll be two pieces where you'll look at that next week.
Now, Jeff, in regards to the motion of having that council remuneration policy and having that,
I got it to come back in April.
well, do we have to make a motion to, because we have that committee was in review?
That committee can't bind you in any way, so you'll just make a motion on a new policy next week.
All right, thank you.
It was a recommendation.
Yeah.
You're all clear.
Okay, it's 6:15. We haven't got a whole lot of business to do. Let's carry on then, if that's all right. Anybody needs a break?
I just need a few minutes.
Let's have a motion for break, please.
I think we should just have a 5-minute break.
Okay, Councillor Brown, all in favor? Carried.